Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Balanced Business Coach. My name is Toni Robinson, and I'm a life coach for leaders. I help individuals and teams create more balance within their personal and professional lives so that they can make a bigger impact on the places that they serve. I'm so excited to have you here today. As always, you guys are my favorite people to talk to. Anyone who's listening right now, it means the absolute world to me that you are here. So today I have some tea to spill. Last week I kind of teased that there was this weird experience that I went through recently, and today I am actually going to be spilling the tea on what exactly happened, what I would do differently in the future, and what I learned. I want to give a brief background on what exactly happened because obviously you need to know in order for me to be able to explain what I learned and what I would do differently next time and what I really didn't appreciate. But I don't want this to feel like I'm just bashing this organization because it's not about that. I really took from this a learning opportunity for myself, and I also saw it as an opportunity to educate other organizations and other employers on better ways to handle situations like this in the future. So I just wanted to preface by saying this is not a gossip, drama filled, I just want to bash this company episode. I am going to talk about some of the details of the call that I had or the multiple calls that I had with them, but I'm not here to sit and complain. I'm really here to educate on the lessons that I took from this experience. So with all of that being said, let's get into it. All right, so I want to start with the background on what happened. I have been posting on LinkedIn, social media for a while now, and this person had taken notice of my messaging, my content, the things that I was speaking about, and had reached out to me to say that they wanted to do some work with me. Initially, it was just like, hey, I think I would need your services in the future. I'll reach out to you when I'm ready. And I was like, awesome, that sounds great. This is a person that I had some connection with in my prior employment. It was more of like we know of each other, but not super well. So anyway, I was, excited about possibly working with this person in the future. But then about a month or two ago, they reached out to me again saying that I should come back into the industry that I was in previously. And I found that to be a little bit odd because obviously I've started my own business and I don't necessarily feel like that's something that you just say to somebody. So I was like, there must be something deeper here that this person wants to share with me. They ended up asking to schedule a call with me one-on-one to kind of go into an offer that they wanted to extend to me to be part of their organization. When I got on the call with this person, it really became an amazing opportunity that I was really looking forward to. Essentially, what they had described to me was what I was doing, what I was talking about on social media, the message that I share, the things that I believe in. I would be able to take that into their organization and do what I do, but for the organization itself. So typically, what I'm doing is I'm consulting with other employers, with other leaders, explaining to them what they can do better to balance their own personal versus professional lives, how they can create a more fulfilling workplace. But this person wanted me to come in and just be that culture change for their workplace. And I was really excited about that because I do know the industry so well, and it was going to be an opportunity for me to make this huge impact on their organization. And then the way this industry is kind of set up is that you have other people who do what you do, other organizations that do what you do, and you all kind of collaborate, come together, ask, how are you doing this or how is this working for you? And it was going to be so exciting for me to be part of that conversation when it came to the cultural impact that I was able to make, the organizational impact that I was able to make on this company, so that we could then have that ripple effect on all of the organizations that also are in that same circle. So I was very excited about the opportunity. And after our initial conversation, I was really weighing, do I want to sort of evolve what I'm doing, what I'm creating, and do it within an actual organization rather than doing it within my own business as like a consulting type of deal. And I was I was really starting to buy into the idea of going to this organization. I felt like I was in alignment with the owner's ideals, beliefs, mindset. And so I felt like it was this perfect gift of an opportunity that was placed in my life. Fast forward a few weeks, we were going to be meeting with the same person that I had talked with initially, who really wanted me in this position, and their business partner. That is when everything really went downhill for me. I would say there were just multiple yellow flags throughout this second half of the process. The first yellow flag, I would say, was that when I got the calendar invite, it said that it was an interview for me. However, up until this point, I had not seen a job description. There was no like formal, we're interviewing you for X, Y, and Z. It was more of a conversation of, would you be interested in coming to work for our organization to do what you do? So from my perspective, I'm thinking they should be explaining to me what their vision is for this position that they're creating for me. They should be asking me like, hey, this is a problem that we have. What do you think you could do about this? Or how do you think you could contribute to this? Or would you want to contribute to this? Because that was the missing like piece for me in between the time that we talked the first time and the second time. I was excited about the opportunity, but it was still so unclear about what I would even be doing or what they really needed from me. But I was excited because it felt like the reason they reached out to me was because they understood what my beliefs are, what my mindset is around business and all of that. So I thought at least we're on that same page, but I was thinking going into this second conversation, it was going to be more details about what they wanted out of this. So when I saw the word Toni interview, I was like, well, that's strange. Granted, I will give semantics. Like maybe that's just the word that they use. Fine. I don't care. That's kind of how I went into it. Like, it's weird that they use the word interview, but I'm not going to give up this opportunity because they use the word interview, and I think that's weird. But it was a little bit strange. It did sit odd with me. So then I get on the call with the person who I had initially talked with. It was a Teams meeting, and they were being very strange, I would say, asking me the same questions that we had already talked about on the first conversation, but almost in a way that was like everything that we had been on the same page with on the first conversation, the things we were like, yes, so excited about, the things that they had told me, like, I love this about what you say, I like this about what you do. It was almost like they were using it against me in this call, and it was very strange from my perspective. And then the business partner was supposed to be there, but they weren't in the meeting until maybe like 8 to 10 minutes late, which, okay, fine. But when they joined, they didn't say hello. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't do any of the like professional, respectful, courteous things that you would expect someone to do. And so I thought that was a little odd. And then they just kind of like observed the conversation from there, while I continued to reiterate all of the things that I had already spoken with this person about. It really felt like it turned into this, instead of us saying, here's what we're looking for, are you interested in this or not? We're going to get her to say all of the things that she would want out of a position with us. And then we're going to use that to say no and reject her. Whether they meant for it to be that way, I can't say. I really don't know either of them at all or well enough to say, oh yeah, I think they planned this on the back end. But it was just odd. It was such a flip-flop from what we had discussed initially. It was such a flip-flop from all of the conversations that I had had with this person beforehand, because some of the things that they got hung up on were the work schedule. So that's why I put out that YouTube video last week about the 9 to 5 work schedule. They really got hung up on the fact that I said, hey, I'm going to be working on Pacific time, and I do have a morning routine that's very important to me. So what that means is that I probably won't be starting until 9, 10 at the very, very latest, and that would be on rare occasions. And there was a lot of hang up on the boundaries that I was setting. And one of the things that they said to me was that they felt like they might start to resent me because I put boundaries in place. And I was just floored. I was mind blown, because I'm like, the whole reason you approached me was because I talk about setting boundaries, was because I talk about balance, was because I talk about burnout and how to prevent it. And so it was so shocking and just confusing that the reasons why they were like, I don't really think this is going to work, were the same reasons of why they approached me in the first place. So there was just this complete flip flop. There was no back and forth. It was just very like, oh, not going to work for us. Nope, not going to work for us. So I gathered that they had a conversation before the call and kind of had already decided that it probably wasn't going to work out for them, which again is fine, but it just felt like they could have been a little bit more upfront, transparent, and they could have spared us all the time. Like, we didn't need to have that conversation. But again, it's not about what they did wrong. There are pieces that I want to break down on their end, because the person who reached out to me originally explained to me that they are on the verge of burnout, that they are working all of these hours. I would probably say the reason you reached out to me is because you know that there's something missing. But I feel like what they tried to do is put me into their box, and instead of embracing that difference and realizing this is actually good for the organization, this is going to be something that benefits us, they saw it as a potential threat. I think they saw it as something negative after they realized, oh no, like we might have to change the way we do things. And that's where employers really bite themselves in the ass, is if you stay the same and you do the same things that you've always done and you operate the same way that you always have, and you stay in the same mindset that you've always had, you don't open yourself to the opportunity for something really amazing. All of that being said, wish them well. No hard feelings at all. Like, I was not counting on this opportunity. I was excited about it. I was disappointed when it didn't work out, just because I had gotten myself excited about it. But at the end of the day, it wasn't like my livelihood was depending on this opportunity. And I am very grateful for that I still have this amazing business that I get to continue to run. So I want to get into what I would do differently next time. I would absolutely ask more questions, like way, way, way more questions. I would have asked more questions before the second conversation that we had. I probably would have asked more questions during the first conversation that I had with the person. I think I got so excited about the good things that I was hearing that I didn't think about specifically asking for more of the logistics questions. Now, I will give myself some credit that I did ask in the first conversation, because they had asked me about salary range, and I'm like, well, what is the job? Like, what do you want me to do? Do you have a job description? And they said no. So in my opinion, until I can see like a job description or something that you're thinking of, I don't understand why we're like proceeding to have these conversations. So I probably would have been a little bit more upfront and maybe demanding about having a concrete description and understanding of what they were looking for. The other thing I would have probably questioned is just, this meeting invite says this is an interview. You are approaching me wanting me to come work for you. So what is it that you're going to provide for me? And what is it that like you're interviewing me about? about. Like, I need to understand more about what you're looking for before I continue to entertain this possible opportunity. I think I just would have asked more questions. More questions needed to be asked. I also think that I could have had some better nervous system regulation before the second call that I had with the person. I was feeling like low-key super nervous when I was getting on the call. And I don't know if it's because of the word interview that it just like sparked these feelings of nerves. I don't know. It's like when you feel like you're being interviewed, it's kind of like interrogation, or like it just came up with this like feeling of, oh, snap. We have an interview today. Interview nerves transform. Like I don't know. They just like came about. So I think I could have done some better nervous system regulation that day. I did meditate, I journaled, I read, but when I was reading, I could tell that I was really like not focused. I did do some listening to affirmations, but one thing that I did not do was tapping. And I really feel like tapping could have been a huge game changer for me and my energy going into that second conversation. So I definitely would have listened more to myself and not rushed my nervous system regulation process so much, because I think that really affected the way I felt in that conversation. I also think that I should have paid closer attention to the yellow flags, like not having the job description. The communication could have been better. There were a lot of things that were just very unclear from their end. And I think I should have paid more attention to that, because if that's how it was on the front end, that's probably how it's going to be within the business as well. And is that something that I really want to get myself back into? I really appreciate very upfront and clear communication, and I don't like to do a whole lot of like beating around the bush or not being direct. I think that's a waste of people's time. I would rather us get straight to the point, and I felt like there was a lot of just, and I don't think that it was intentional. I think that they are just unclear about what they're looking for, or if they even needed this position. Like maybe it just sounded good and they were like, hey, this would be really cool if you came to work for us, which I think that's amazing that I was even considered for that kind of position, and I'm very grateful for it. But I think that the lack of clarity that they have reflected throughout the process, and I should have paid more attention to that. Like, let me know when you're clear on what you're looking for, and then I can decide if I'm a good fit for what you need. I wish I would have approached it more with that energy. I kind of wish I would have gone into it more with a consulting hat on of, hey, you contacted me, you reached out to me, you're looking for this. This is kind of what I could do. What are you looking for? Pulling out more of the questions. I just feel like I should have asked more questions. And instead, I put on this hat of like needing to prove myself and wanting to explain myself and overly like share about what I'm doing, what I believe in. And I think that I could have been in a much more grounded place where I would have spent more time asking the questions than answering them. So, a few things that I learned, and then we're going to close this out. How much time we waste when we don't know what we want. If you are an organization, a leader, an employer, and you are trying to create a change within the organization, you have to be so clear on what you want and why you want it and how you're going to get it. Because if you don't have those three things, you're going to waste people's time. If you're not clear on what you want, then nobody else is going to be either. If you're not clear on why you want it, then nobody else is going to be on board. You could get tired of it or get bored of getting to the desired outcome because you're not anchored in the purpose behind it. And then if you don't know how you're going to get there, everyone's just going to be running around like chickens with their heads cut off because they don't know how to get there either. So everybody's just kind of doing their own thing. As a leader, you need to be able to say, this is what we are working working towards this is why we want it, and here's how we're going to get there. That way, everybody can be moving on the same direction, on the same page. We need to be considering those three things before we bring other people into our vision, our mission, things that we want to do, things that we want to change within an organization. I also kind of realized how much situations like this probably happen to people who are actively seeking jobs. I was not, so this was not as hard on me as it probably could have been. But when I'm reading all of these posts on LinkedIn about people getting ghosted or people flip-flopping at the last minute or employers just being unclear about expectations or people doing all of this free work for employers, it's like employers are expecting so much from the people that they're looking to hire, but they really are putting like zero fucking effort into what they can provide. Interviews should not be so one-sided. And people are like, oh, well, the candidate needs to ask questions. I think that the reason sometimes it's so hard for candidates to ask questions is because employers don't do a very good job of describing what is going on, why they're looking for a new position, and what they're really looking for. Like if they could describe to candidates the what, the why, the how, I think candidates would come up with so many more questions and be able to have this dialogue back and forth about whether it's really a good fit on both sides. And we approach recruiting, interviewing as so much of a one-sided thing. That's why employees get so burned out, because they feel like they're constantly giving so much of themselves and they're really not even considering like, is this place even a good fit for me? Is this even something I want? We really need to approach it as a two-way relationship. It's not just one person deciding if the other person is good enough for them. It shouldn't be that. But I can see why so many people experience job search burnout. And I have linked below a job search burnout meditation that I put out for anyone who is trying to actively seek for a position right now. If you are experiencing constant rejection, if you're experiencing constant like whiplash of this employer doesn't know what they want and I don't know how to like make this stuff work because I'm so confused about what I'm even doing in all of this chaos that is the job market right now. If you're in that, grab that meditation. It's totally free. And hopefully that will help you and give you some relief either before you're going into a job interview, after you have a job interview. It will be very beneficial for your nervous system. The other thing that I learned is that we are just way too tied to the 9 to 5. And I'm not going to get into that because I did a whole entire video on it. I will link it down below. But go listen to that if you want to hear my thoughts and my recommendations on why and how we should change the 9 to 5 schedule. I also learned about how employers resent employees for setting boundaries. I was so grateful that this person was so honest with me about this, because as much as I was like, WTF, I was also like, oh, wow, this is a new layer of understanding that I now have about how employers are viewing my work and how leaders may be feeling a little bit like, well, if I don't have access to a person during a certain number of hours, or if they set boundaries where I can't contact them at any hour of the day, I'm going to feel resentful of them. If you are a leader, if you are an organization, you really need to ask yourself, what makes you feel like you have to have 24/7 access to your employees? Or what level of control do you feel like you need to have over their schedule, over their lives? Like, why is it wrong that employees have a life outside of your organization? Because you don't own the employee. They come and they work for your company. You own the company. You don't own the employee. It's an exchange for their work, not control of their life. We really need to check our egos and check why we feel the need to control people so much just because they work for us. So, the other thing that this brought to my awareness is how some employers are viewing growth phases. The organization that I talked to, they aren't a startup, but I think that this applies to startups as well. If you are in a rapid growth phase and you are communicating the what you want to do, you're communicating the why you want to do it, you're communicating the how you want to do it, and all of your employees are excited, they're on board, and they're just like throwing themselves into work because they are so excited about where you guys are going and they want to see this growth as well. That is amazing, but it's really important for you to notice a couple of things. Number one, you need to be hyper vigilant about checking in with employees to make sure that they are not getting burned out, because one of the biggest factors of employees burning out is having a motivation, a momentum of working more hours than normal. But then over time, they realize they've been neglecting other needs, or they have been spending so much time at work that they are just completely exhausted. Like eventually they will hit a wall. You will eventually slow down. You will eventually get tired. You will eventually wear out. So, no matter how excited someone is about a growth phase, you cannot expect that that is going to just like continue forever. You have to be very aware about how people are feeling and whether they are okay with the number of hours that they are working during the phase that requires more work to be done. And then also be aware of your own beliefs as people decide, I'm going to scale back my hours to what I had initially agreed upon. Because here's what happens. Someone enters a growth phase, employees get excited about it, and they start working maybe 9, 10 hours a day, or they start doing a little bit more work. Maybe they work on the weekends, like they put extra energy into it. But then you see as the employer, oh, like I don't need to hire anyone because my employees are handling the workload. And then you don't realize, like, just because they can handle the workload doesn't mean that they should be handling that level of a workload. And over time, if you put the expectation on them that they should still be able to handle and manage that level of output, you're not going to do the things to make sure that they don't burn out. You're not going to hire when you probably should. You're going to hire after it's maybe too late and your employees have already reached a level of stress or burnout that is detrimental to their health, to their productivity levels. You also aren't going to as easily be able to switch in your mind that just because this person is now saying this level of output or this level of work or this many hours per week is not working for me anymore, I need to go back to the 8 hours a day, or I need to go back to this level of work. It's not fair for you to resent them because they went full speed ahead for your business growth. It's not fair for you to say, oh, now you need some time off. Now you need more normalcy. Now you need more balance. That's not going to work for us. Now this employee is being looked at as they're not as productive as they used to be. Oh, they're a little bit more lazy. Their work isn't as good anymore. Like, no, they actually just really committed to the business vision. Now that momentum and that motivation has kind of fizzled out. Now their energies are a little bit lower because they've spent so much time and energy on your business. Now they need to pour into their cup, but you're not willing to give them that because you're thinking to yourself, they did this before. Why can't they keep doing it? It's because it was never sustainable to begin with. So what I would recommend to people in growth phases is have some sort of set deadline of you can do this level of output for a certain period of time, or you can put in these number of hours for a certain period of time. But after, 3 months, you need to go back to your regular schedule. After 2 months, you need to go on a vacation. Something like that, where you're making sure that you communicate to your employees and that you're making sure that you keep your ego in check. Yes, they are committing themselves to this, but we're also going to commit ourselves to them because we appreciate them putting in this extra work. So we're going to make sure that we don't ever expect that out of them, but that we make sure that this is sustainable long term. Because if you have employees who are willing to put in that work, you have struck gold. You don't want to put an expectation, an unrealistic expectation on them that is going to make them go elsewhere, look elsewhere for someone that really appreciates them, that gives them a more sustainable schedule and a more sustainable workload. Do the things that you need to do to grow your business, but also do the things that you need to do to retain your employees, because those are probably two different things. All right. So those are the things that I really took away from this conversation. Hopefully this was insightful, helpful, something for you guys. I just felt the need to kind of break it down. I just felt like it was a good thing to share on the podcast because there were so many takeaways that I had from it. I will probably reference it from time to time because it was so interesting to me to see how everything unfolded. And I truly gained so much insight about where people are at mentally and belief wise when it comes to really creating businesses that have balance for their employees, that create sustainability for their employees, that really support their employees' well-being. It was interesting to me to hear and to see where people are actually at. No matter how much they truly want those things for their employees, where are you actually willing to change? What are you actually willing to do for that sustainability, for that well-being? Anyway, that's all I've got for us today. Thank you so much for being here with me. I would love to hear your takeaways, or like, what could I have done differently? What would you say if you were in my shoes? Like, would you have taken it the way that I took it, or how would you have interpreted this whole experience as well? Like, I really am curious what other people's thoughts are about how this whole experience went down. And again, this is all from my perspective. So I understand there's two sides, three sides to every story. So I definitely don't want to make it seem like I was so perfect and they did everything wrong. It's not that at all. It really was something that I was grateful to even be considered for. I'm grateful to be able to witness the mindset of employers who are interested in my work and seeing that there is still a barrier between what they would be willing to do and what they wouldn't. Anyway, that is that. Thank you again for being here. We are on our way to 75 episodes. So make sure to hit that like, subscribe button so that I know that you're enjoying this, that you're here for the journey. It means the world to me for all of those of you who listen to this podcast. Make sure that you're sharing this with people who you think would benefit from this. But please, please, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. It really helps. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please make sure to leave a review. That also really helps me get discovered as well. So I hope you all are having an amazing week. I will see you next time. Take care.